Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. My name's Edie. We're here for She Is Glamorous. We're gonna talk about prepping the skin and applying foundation and making sure that we can set everything appropriately to give you that perfect, beautiful base to then build color and depth and texture on top of to be able to give you that perfect makeup look. So my skin is clean. I did a mask earlier. I have a little bit of moisturizer on my skin that I've let sit in for 5 to 10 minutes. So it feels really lovely. All of the products that I'm going to be using today will be listed below. You can buy most of them on the website. So if you love something, if you love the way it looks, try it. That's really the only way to know. So the first thing that we're going to start with is primer. Primer's super important. This is the Touch Glorious primer from Unique. It's a really pretty light primer. It is clear, which I really like because that's not going to give me a tinge to the skin. You know, some primers are dark or opaque or white or yellow, and they can do great things like brightening, but for me, they just make my skin look a little sad looking, I'm not gonna lie. So I like a clear primer. Just take like a pea-sized drop on the back of your hand, let it warm up for just a moment, and then I'm just gonna touch this again to my problem areas. So I'm looking to hide pores on my cheeks, my chin, my forehead, and the bridge of my nose. So then we just take this and rub it lightly, work it into the skin. I'm gonna take just a little bit more, another little pea-sized drop. Remember with products, anything having to do with beauty, you can always add more, but you can't take it away once it's on your skin. So start light, start small, and then just add more as you go. And if you need a little more product, get a little more product, it's great. So you're gonna wanna apply this primer all over, avoiding the eye area. And don't forget that you're taking your makeup down your neck as well. So make sure you get a little bit of primer down there. What primer does is it creates a base for your foundation to stick to. So it's not just sticking to your skin. It creates a little buffer between your skin and your foundation. So they really will meld together and finish beautifully, which is really, really lovely. Yeah, and they won't clog up your pores, which is great. So for me, my problem area is large pores, a little bit of redness. A primer works really well because it will smooth over those pores, make them look smaller, but then also protect them from the makeup so the makeup won't settle into them, which is what we want. So you just give it a few moments. I usually just give it a few moments to let it soak in. And I want to talk about my beauty sponges. I use 2 different beauty sponges, one for contour, one for foundation and highlight, because I don't want to mix those up. The key to the beauty sponge, no matter what brand you're using, no matter where you get it, they're all a little different. This is my go-to favorite one. It is the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge. I'm obsessed with it. You've got to get it wet. And when I say wet, y'all, I mean wet. Like hold it, soak it in water. Get it wet, so it's wet all the way through. Give it a couple good squeezes into the sink and then use a towel to squeeze it again so that it's damp. They're very easy to use. If you use them dry, which you totally can, you absolutely can use them dry, you're gonna get much fuller coverage. And you're gonna have to use more product because it will absorb more of the product. If you put a little bit of water in there, it's not gonna absorb as much of the product. It's gonna give you a dewier, glowier finish. And I just think it works better with the products that I use. So try it, but don't, when they say dampen, they mean dampen. It needs to be wet, so soak it in that water. What I'm gonna be using today to apply my foundation is a brush. This is the optical blurring brush from Urban Decay. It's my favorite. I was never a fan of brushes before for foundation application, but then I found this brush and it's everything to me. So we're gonna be using that, and then I'm gonna be applying my highlighter with a beauty blender and just making sure that I blend everything out perfectly. So let's get started. The foundation that I'm using today is the Mineral Touch Unique Foundation. The color for this one is Velour. Give it a good shake. Make sure that you've got it good and mixed up. And then a general rule for liquid foundations, this is what I found, is 1 drop is sheer coverage, 2 drop is medium coverage, 3 drops is full coverage, 4 drops is like, ain't nobody gonna see nothing. Your skin is gonna be completely covered. So liquid foundation can be hard because you can feel like you're using a ton of product. Just work it into the skin really well. So we're just gonna take it, I'm going for full coverage today. 1, 2, 3, 4 drops. We'll start there. It's gonna look like very, very, very little product. I mean, that's a teeny, teeny, tiny amount. So you just take your brush, take your product, dab it in, and then you wanna start in the center of your face, slowly buffing out. So I'm gonna put some on my nose, down my cheeks, on my chin, and on my forehead. Ooh, this smells really nice. And then you just take the brush and you just buff very, very, very lightly. So you wanna take this foundation and just work it into the skin. You don't wanna pull on the skin. You're just letting the brush kind of float on top. Circular motions will keep you from getting those streaky lines, which is something I learned the hard way after wearing my foundation out a few times. You still have more product on your hands, so go ahead and get the rest of that onto your face. And then this is my #1 rule for makeup. Don't let anybody ever tell you your makeup's bad. Just don't, because it's not. Because if you think you look good and you like the way it looks, then it looks great. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There are some tips and tricks that you can try to make your technique better, but your makeup does not look bad. It never has, it never will. So notice that I'm avoiding my eye area and keeping the foundation above my eyebrows and taking it right up under my eyes. I'm gonna conceal after applying my foundation. I find I use less concealer that way. Don't forget your neck. Don't forget your neck. I find I use less concealer that way, so I apply my concealer like a highlight after my foundation. And then what I do at the very end, once I'm happy with the coverage, this is a really nice, light, easy liquid foundation. I actually really like this.
The color looks really good.
The color looks great. It's a really nice color. Take your brush, get your ears. You don't have to worry about as much about the coverage because we're not trying to conceal imperfections here. We're just trying to make sure that the color is even. Take it down your neck. And then I go in close just to make sure that I don't have any streaky streaks. Looks good. Now at this point, if I was going out at night, I would probably do another layer of foundation to take it from something that's more appropriate for daytime. Like this would be perfect for work. I would take it a little deeper, a little heavier if I was going out at night, but I think that this is gonna be really lovely for daytime. So I'm gonna leave this just like that. Perfect. Now we need to set it. Now this is something that took me a really, really long time to learn. Get a good setting brush, Real Techniques, I love them. They're cheap, they work really, really well. Just a great loose powder. So take your powder, tap it upside down, and what ends up in the lid is probably enough to do it. That wasn't quite enough, so I'm just gonna tap a little bit into the lid. It takes very little powder, very, very, very little. Remember, you can always add more. So you've got your powder in the lid, take your brush, swirl it through the product. It's gonna get everywhere. Tap off the excess. You're gonna get powder all over the place. That's just how it is. And then I start on the high points of my face, just rolling. I just wanna roll a little bit of powder onto the high points of my face. Now we're not setting everything fully today. Well, I mean, we will, just not right now. I just wanna set this foundation so it doesn't move. Very, 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 very light, very easy.
So Edie, can you explain why you were rolling instead of, say, dabbing or brushing?
Yeah, so very light, and when you roll, it will help the foundation not move. So if you go in with a heavy pressure and swipe, you're just gonna take all your foundation off. And you're gonna be left with like a streaky mess that's now set, so you can't blend it out, you can't change it. I just do a little bit of powder, set that down. Anywhere you added foundation. Okay, so now the foundation is set. If you take your fingers and you lightly press on your skin, it shouldn't feel wet. It should feel nice and dry, nice and light. feel like skin, right? That's what we're going for. So then I'm gonna take a little bit of concealer. This is the Mineral Touch Skin Perfecting Concealer from Younique. Again, same thing as the foundation, just a little bit on the back of my hand. Pea-sized drop, it doesn't take much. So if you can see it, teeny, 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 tiny. I'm going to take my concealer brush, which is the number 40 Kat Von D Edge concealer brush. It is, again, my favorite thing. I am against $50 brushes. I think that they're ridiculous. I don't think they work. I don't think they're worth the money, except for this one. This is a really good one. The shape of the brush, I'm sure that it's harder to see up here, but the shape of the brush is flat, but if you roll it, it comes to a point. So you really can work that concealer right into the crease of your eye and buff out those creases, which I really appreciate. So just take a little bit of the concealer on your brush and take it right under your eye. I take it up across the bridge of my nose a little bit because what that's gonna do is it's gonna make my nose appear a little flatter. And if you notice, my concealer is just a few shades lighter than my foundation because we're highlighting this area as well. We've got another product to actually do a full highlight, and we'll get there in just a moment. So take that concealer, buff it in, and then you wanna make sure that you're blending out all of the edges. So I'm gonna take it beyond just under my eyes, right? I'm gonna take it all the way down and make sure that all of those lines are nice and soft, because you don't wanna see any lines. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna erase your under eye bags, basically. So what we do with this. If you've got a blemish, a red spot, I usually put a little bit on my chin because my chin gets a little red throughout the day. So just buff the concealer in, and then I take a little bit of what's left on the back of my hand, and I'm gonna use this as an eyeshadow primer. This is a huge tip. If you notice, I still don't have anything on my eyelids. I take my concealer and I buff it into my eyelid. What this does is, like the primer, it's gonna give your eyeshadow a place to adhere. So you're gonna be able to put the eyeshadow on, and if you have heavily hooded eyes like I do, where my entire eyelid folds underneath itself when I open my eyeshadow won't transfer. It won't crease, it won't flake, it won't end up under my eyebrow, my eyeliner will stay put, my mascara will stay on. And it helps to hide a little bit of that redness. You can look at the difference between my two eyelids. So, and you don't need much. That's the thing that was hard for me to learn. I think a lot of us spent years playing with makeup in secret. I mean, didn't you? I did. And doing drag. So both of those instances, you probably were using way too much product. Just use way less. You can always add more. That was something that was really hard for me to understand when I started doing everyday makeup, where I didn't need the illusion anymore. I just needed perfect skin. And that's exactly what a lot of these products are gonna give you. So just blend, go back one more time, buff out that blend, and take a little bit to the tip of my nose just to make sure it's nice and good. And then right up here, I see a little bit of redness. So I'm just gonna conceal it just ever so slightly. Okay, so we've concealed, we've got a great foundation on. We're gonna take a BB cream. So this is the BB Flawless Complexion Enhancer from Younique. This is in the color Cream. I'm just gonna take a little bit. I shook it just a moment ago, so you always wanna shake your products. I'm just gonna take a little bit on the back of my hand. That's what I want. Pardon me while I get a little angled brush. So then I'm just gonna take a little angled brush. This is a little cheapy from Ulta. It's a really good brush, actually. I love it. Pick up a little bit of that product, and then we're gonna highlight. Where do you wanna highlight? You wanna highlight the high points of your face. So that's gonna be your forehead. And remember, when you blend, it's always gonna make the area of the makeup grow. So when I apply the highlight to my forehead, it's very small. I'm actually gonna take the whole highlight up all the way across the middle of my forehead, but that's done with the Beauty Blender, or the blending sponge. A little bit down the bridge of my nose. If you mess it up, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. You can always go back and fix it. And we're gonna take it under our eyes. So I take this even higher on the side of my nose this time, right from the crease, over my nostril, and then down and out. We're gonna take this highlight all the way up, because here's your temple, here's the highlight, and then your cheekbone starts right down here. So just swipe the product on. You can use a cream highlighter. I really like using cream products to highlight because I can still go back with a highlighter later, a powder highlighter, later to add even more intensity. But the cream highlight just gives me a good foundation, right? That's what it's all about with your foundational makeup, is that you just want a good foundation for it. So I did above my lip, because this is the high point of my face. This is what we want to highlight, is right from the top of your mouth, up through your eyes, across your forehead, under your eyebrows, and then back down around your lips. And just a little spot on my chin to keep it fun. Damp, 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 and then just blend.
So what technique would you say that is?
So this is a pounce blending. So I am just bouncing the blending sponge against my skin very lightly. Don't drag, because when you drag, you're gonna remove product. What we don't wanna do is we don't wanna remove any product. We just wanna take the product that we've placed very precisely and just blend out the edges so that we just get a beautiful highlight, right? We just wanna lighten those areas, and we're not looking. The nose is hard. You gotta be very careful. And then blend it up. We're not looking for something super dramatic, right? This isn't nighttime makeup. This is like a nice, easy day look. And we're also gonna come back later and hit this with a powder highlighter. So it's not gonna be, I'm just gonna put a little bit more. What am I looking for? Ah, this. I'm gonna put a little bit more on my forehead. I want a little higher highlight there. So you just take a little bit with your little angled brush. You can use a concealer brush, you can use an angled brush, you can use your fingers. I don't apply products with my fingers because of my fingernails. I will scratch into my foundation and remove product without intending to. So I use brushes for everything, but if you don't have ridiculous talons like me, feel free to use your fingers. They work, they're the best tools we have. And then just very, very lightly. So this is gonna give me a super subtle highlight, which I really, really like. That's the look I'm going for today. You can always go with a heavier cream. You can use a concealer, you can use a foundation, you can contour and highlight with really any cream product. It just depends on how much coverage you want. I want something that's super natural looking, so I'm just gonna, not supernatural, very natural. I don't wanna look supernatural. I wanna look very natural. So I'm just adding a little bit of that. I want a little more on my nose, so I put a little more on my nose, because that's what we do. Okay, so now we're good. We need to set this. So we've got our concealer, the concealer that we're using as an eyelid primer, and our highlight here. So again, I've got my setting powder right here. I've got my lid with a little bit of product in it. I'm just gonna swirl through, tap off the excess, take your brush and focus only on the areas that you added highlight. You don't need to set the rest of your face because it's already set. We already set it. So just tap and roll down the center of your nose, your lip, your chin, and under your eye. You're going to see a change almost immediately. That the color, don't forget your eyelids, that the finish of the makeup is gonna go from shiny to more dewy. So something that's a little more natural looking. The other place that I'll highlight, and I don't do this during the day, but the other place that I'll highlight is along my jawline. So I'll take it from a point that starts right at the tip of my ear down until you see the chin kind of dip in. On me, I've got a prominent chin here, so I don't need to highlight nearly as much on my chin. And then a little gap, and then my jawline starts, right? So that's where I take my highlight. I go from the top of my ear right down in here. And I'll show you that with a powder. I just didn't want to do a cream highlight today because it's a little too dramatic for what I'm going for. So we'll just go back over this, make sure everything is set nicely. Okay, and then this is the key. Have you ever done your eyes? And I know we were talking about this. You do your eye, you do your foundation, it looks so good, and then you go in to do your eyes and all you do is get black and purple and pink fallout that falls down on your cheeks, and you're like, oh, no big deal, I'll just wipe it away. And you wipe it away, and then you've got like this horrible, chalky, messy smear of color on your cheek. This is how you avoid that. Take your full powder, not the lid, we're gonna use some product this time, and your damp beauty blender, and really press it down into the powder until you get a generous amount. And we're gonna take this and we're gonna bake where we highlighted.
Could you explain baking?
Yes. So what baking does is that it'll take the concealer or the cream highlight that you did. When you mix it with the powder, it's gonna sit on your skin and it's gonna heat up. The powder is gonna heat up with the product that's underneath it. When it heats up, the powder sets into the foundation, into the cream highlight, into the contour, and literally bakes it into your skin. So that's how you get that like super smooth Kim Kardashian Instagram filter, Snapchat filter finish. Be careful, because if you have dry skin, if you've got heavy wrinkles, if you've got problem areas, baking can emphasize some of that. So just try it once, and if you don't love the finish, don't do it. You don't have to do it. The other thing that baking does is when you put this heavy down the bridge of your nose, heavy amount of powder under your eyes, that's gonna catch all of that eyeshadow fallout, and we're gonna be able to just dust it away with nothing left at the end. You'll see. Okay, so that's basically, oh, and then when you're baking, leave the powder under your eyes, leave that on for the entire time you're doing your eyes until you're done. We're gonna dust away the rest of this powder in 2 minutes. That's all you really need. Chin, nose, lip, and forehead you can dust away after 2 minutes. So we're gonna take a little break and then we'll be back to do eyes.